The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in horror franchises. And today we are discussing Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth from 1992. Yeah, this one, I feel like we are heading full on into franchise territory.
Very much so.
We'll get into it in a moment, but first opening scene, I was just like, yes, we're not quite a long way from Baghead, but we're a long way from original Clive Barker Pinhead with this movie. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of happened behind the scenes to get us to that within the first few minutes of this film.
This is definitely Hellraiser American style. Like we're out of the country of imagination, I believe, as Peter Atkins called it, into just straight up. It's New York City, Pinhead, the big city. Yeah. Like visually and aesthetics, it's very much American, just very much a studio, big, theatrical. We've shifted gears.
And this is the first film under the Dimension banner, which is the horror / genre banner underneath the Weinsteins under Miramax. They had a lot of other horror stuff right around that time. Yeah. You know, they had their Miramax Oscar wannabes, and then they had their gutter stuff in Dimension, and the other Weinstein ran Dimension. Harvey and shit, I don't even remember. Bob Weinstein. So this is a Bob jam. Yeah, it was passed around to a few different people. Even Peter Jackson was approached to direct this, and I really enjoy the fact that he was just like, nah, I just try to do comedy gags.
Yeah, that was actually a big thing that Clive Barker was afraid of with who they ended up getting to direct it. Anthony Hickox was like, don't make it funny. This isn't funny. Yeah. Because Anthony Hickox previously had done the Waxworks movies, a couple of horror movies there. Yeah. With Billy Peltzer himself. Zach Galligan is in those. Oh, yes. But they're very, I mean, knowing that makes sense with this movie, just the directorial style and the feeling of it is much more kinetic. That's also true of his filming style. I was reading that apparently he would do like 60 setups a day, which is on Waxworks, which is wild. That is a wild amount of filming. I would not be surprised if that was the case here, because I feel like sometimes there wasn't as much focus on acting. I guess I'll put it that way. Yeah,
I from what I gathered, he would just kind of like film what he thought he needed from an editorial standpoint. His brother was co-editing the film with him, so he would just be like, we're not going to do this all in a wide for coverage, which bummed out the actors. Like, not having anything to cut to. So he would just like kind of edit in his head and get what he needed. He would cram as much as possible into one day, and they'd be shooting 12 to 16 hours a day. Also, they were shooting in North Carolina, which is a right to work state.
Oh, God.
No unions.
Oh,
so
cool.
None of the unions could come back and say like, hey, we've hit overtime. Hey, you shouldn't work us past 14 hours, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool.
So that was very on brand for this director.
But I mean, for all reports, it was like a nice working environment. People enjoyed working for him. People had a good time. So I don't want to make it sound like he was, some awful tyrant.
Just long days, and long days will happen on any movie set, particularly unless you're Clint Eastwood.
I was going to
say, but horror films in particular tend to go late. Doug Bradley was saying like he was on set for 17 or 18 hours on more than one occasion. And that's going to be rough when you're sporting that much makeup.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find, because he's from he's a Nepo baby. His mother, Anne V. Coates, was the editor of Lawrence of Arabia and The Elephant Man.
Wow.
And his dad was Douglas Hickox, who directed Entertaining Mr. Sloan and Zulu Dawn. He was a man responsible for Theater of Blood, starring Vincent Price, which is a fun horror flick. That's from the Hellraiser films and their legacy. Yeah, so he's got a pedigree for this stuff. Clive Barker even said that it's like the filming went smoothly. I'm assuming where all the problems landed was in post-production.
Right. I get the impression that Clive Barker, maybe at this time, and I think we talked about it a little bit on our Patreon episode. Sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/thismayhurtabit. We talked about him in the context of dealing with studios and dealing with other creatives. And I just get the impression that he's almost too sweet to say no or get mad sometimes. I don't want to say that he doesn't have a spine, because who am I to say about anything about that? But it's just him going to the director and just said, please don't make it silly. And I just feel like he got run roughshod, and then he like tried to take his name off of it. But then they came back to him and say, hey, we'll pay you more money if you put your name back on it. And I don't blame a guy for wanting a paycheck at all. So, and it needs to feel a piece. Yeah. And he had a couple of notes as well, like that I think he helped expand, at least one version of the story anyways, that like they, as a result, like they sort of expanded the club scene, the murder spree scene. And then I think it was because of Clive Barker. According to this version, the Terry Farrell in bondage gear was a Clive Barker like, hey, why don't we do that? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Weirdly enough. That sounds about right.
The horniness of this movie is a lot different than the other ones, and we can get into that. But I kind of like, at the same time, I like that Terry Farrell, because her character, Joey Summerskill, is really like...
This may be a surprise to you, Brad, but I want to do this the right way. Tight stories, not tight skirts.
All the bondage gear goes over her clothes. Like that she's wearing this like turtleneck and long pants. And she's like, no, that's going over. We're not doing anything there. It fits with the character, so whatever.
It does. Are you saying that they should have done like a 80s sex comedy bit where, like, you know, Hellraiser, like a Pinhead like tears her clothes off, like skin?
Like skin,
off,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just right.
Leaving boxers with hearts on them or a barrel.
A barrel.
You know, something realistic.
Terry Farrell's barrel. Like just over her. Just all skin and muscle otherwise.
But a modest barrel.
But a very modest.
Yeah, I think that's compromise is what that is.
Mm-hmm. Just like the sex scene that they actually did film in this that we'll get to later. Talk about compromises. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I have a little bit of a soft spot for this one. Just like I tried going into this movie this time, just knowing that this is much more of your kind of typical 80s, 90s horror movie. Just knowing that we're going to kind of leave our Clive Barker themes and depth at the door and just kind of have a good time with it. Not saying it succeeds on all levels by any means. I'm just trying, like, I adjust my expectations when I'm going into Hellraiser 3.
Right. Yeah. Like
as compared to the previous two.
Yeah. As we had said previously, like this was one that I think my first Hellraiser that I saw, and is a lot more sort of accessible, I guess, you know, yeah, because it is much more of a piece of those. And this is they're clearly trying to, by rule of the studio, and also kind of what the fans wanted at this point, was more Pinhead. So like, all right, let's make Pinhead a slasher guy.
Right.
And so this was really supposed to be like Pinhead's coming out movie, which is funny because it's also a movie about how Pinhead sucks. And we can get into that as we progress. But no, this is Pinhead on his own, unshackled from Leviathan and what came before.
Right. Yeah. I did mention that they were filming in North Carolina. They were shooting this back to back with the sequel, Children of the Corn Part 2.
Ooh, boy.
Which was called The Final Sacrifice, which does kind of just crack me up on a level of like, I think there's like 9 Children of the Corns or something like that, which again, we'll get to. However, the second movie in your franchise is called The Final Sacrifice. You guys are shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah,
right
they were like, there's no way. That was an open challenge. Like, I dare you to make more of these.
Right. So same crew.
Oh, wow.
Same lot of people. They were just like, again, the Looney Tunes just like checking in, checking out, clocking in, clocking out gag is just like, up, today's Children of the Corn last day. Tomorrow, come back in. It's Hellraiser Part 3.
Wow.
So I guess by that point, your crew is really gelled. There is something to that effect. I really hope that they had a week or two of downtime because, you know, again, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week is hard work.
Well, and a chance to really wrap their head around the material.
Right. With barbed wire. But yeah, I mean, the opening shot of this movie tells you're literally not in Britain anymore because you're in New York City. And it's immediately like, ooh, Pinhead takes Manhattan, you know, not quite, but
yeah.
he takes a street in Manhattan later on. Clearly in North Carolina. Now that I think about it, that is really funny because that street later on in the film just looks like a suburban, like,
it's just generic
New York
street.
City.
Yeah.
Right.
Not to nitpick, but the cops, their uniforms like are not New York City cops. It says something
NYPD,
like Summit Corporation Police or something. It's something weird.
That sounds like RoboCop. Police, you know,
it's just not New York, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
This is like my fifth time seeing this movie, and I made it a point to look for it, and I did. You know, like you're not looking at it. It's not a big deal.
So the opening couple scenes in this, you know, they give you a little bit. You've got somebody selling off a puzzle box early on. That somebody is played by one of the producers of the movie, and it is also supposed to be the same character, the same homeless person in the first movie too. It's supposed to be the same character. That's what a director's commentary told me.
Sure.
On the Blu-ray.
Well, because there's a couple of questions about that. Because go for it. The first one being that the pillar we see at the end of 2, that guy's face is on it.
Oh.
And the second one being that this is definitely not the same guy. He's styled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because there's no
dragon.
There's no dragon or anything at the end that ties him to anything. It just looks like he ran into a weirdo at a store that was like, yeah, I'll sell you this thing. What do you think you should pay for it? Give me that much money. That sounds great. Mm-hmm. Like it's just a psychopath. And that's fine too. That has no idea what he's doing and just sells this guy this thing.
He's purchasing this spinning thing at the end of part 2. They don't transport the mattress, which is probably a good idea, into this third film. I love the bloody mattress, but it's time to leave that behind. Mm-hmm. I do dig the idea of everything starting with the spinning pillar.
Yeah, but it's like the pillar now is a giant statue.
Sure.
And so I like to imagine at the end when that like derelict guy, his voice is like, "What's your pleasure, sir?" That he's like, "You turn into rocks," and then it became
right.
Then it became a statue.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's a lot fancier than what it was at the end of 2. But it's neat. I like it.
We then get introduced to our main character, Joey, played by Terry Farrell. I may accidentally call her Dax throughout all this because she plays Jadzia Dax on DS9, much like Andrew Robinson from the first film played Garrick. So we've got the most DS9 of this.
But before we get into that, I want to talk about the guy selling who bought the statue. Like this is
the best character in the movie.
Yeah, JP Monroe, who I guess is supposed to be like, they really kind of try to style him to look like Frank from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
He comes across, and this isn't, I'm not dogging the actor here, but just he comes across so much more like at worst a poser and at most just like an empty dork. Like there's no, like Frank had this kind of interior, like there was a magnetism to him. There was something creepy. Like you believed that he was into some really heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. This guy just like listens to new metal. Like there was not much to him. He seems pretty shallow.
It might have been purposeful because I kind of like the idea that later on he might just be somebody easy to manipulate by Pinhead to get out of that.
Well, that's a whole big thing this time around. And is part of Pinhead being on his own is that up until this point, the box and Leviathan, all that was like, hey, basically, if you know, you know. It's like if you're a lawyer, you know, a good lawyer, it's considered gauche to advertise.
Right.
And so Leviathan, those guys, the people that need us will come to us. They'll find us. We have an elite clientele where Pinhead's just like, I need bodies, man. I need people to come get me. So he's a lot more like salesman-y.
That's true. Yeah. And so he picks the guy with the Disturbed t-shirt who owns a club.
Yeah. He's got money.
He's a mark.
Yeah, he's a chump.
And a lot of shorts.
A lot of rings. I can own this guy.
Yeah, right. Good fitness regiment, though.
Oh,
nice looking back on this guy. He's got a good back. I do really like this first scene. It's so opposite of a classy Hellraiser. Mm-hmm. But again, if we accept what we're getting into here, a body on a gurney getting rushed down a hallway with chains and blood coming off of it. That's fantastic.
That is it's so great. And it just bolstered by the fact that this is also where we're introduced to the character of Terry, who's running alongside it going,
Look, it's got nothing to do with me, all right?
hey, I'm not with him, right? You know, like I have nothing to do with any of this. So like if any of this is a crime, it has nothing to do with me, right? We agree on that. I see you're nodding. I see this guy gets it. Okay. So just so we're clear, I'm in the clear. I did a good deed, not involved. Bye. Right. I just loved that. That was very, very funny. Of
course. Yeah. We follow the body into a operating area. Is there a better name for that? An operating area?
Operating room?
OR. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that from MASH.
Uh-huh.
OR. Anyway, yeah, they throw the guy down. Electricity starts going nuts, like that classic blue electro Hellraiser stuff. And I love that they just don't waste any time on this at all. He gets electrocuted, his head blows up, and we get a nice close up on the heart flatline. So just like,
yes.
Duder's head exploded.
Yeah. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, now he's dead.
Call
just
time
to
of
be
death.
sure. Yeah. Hey, got to follow protocol.
We really needed the doctor to get in there and do one of those dramatic, like, you know, getting the paddles going. Like, don't you die on me.
All right, Steve, calm down.
Yeah. You did this last week.
Yeah. So, yeah, while this has happened right after our heroine, Joey, is there, she's a news reporter trying to cover the story. Like, there's nothing happening at the OR tonight. And she's mad that she keeps getting these crummy assignments. But she's there with her buddy, Doc, her Hulk Hogan, that one guy from Cool Jaws, mustached Doc, played by Ken Carpenter. I would like a whole movie of Doc because Doc is great. My favorite part is when he gets, because this is what'd you say, 1992?
Yeah.
He's got a cell phone. He's got a mobile phone.
Heck yeah.
in a leather belt strap.
Speak.
Love him. Like he was a Bluetooth dad before Bluetooth dads.
It's also like he's a camera operator.
Yeah.
For the news. And it's just kind of like, he worked on a lot of shoots. You've seen that, like that camera operator or that grip who's just like, who looks just like Doc.
Yep.
Who's got that leather holster.
Yeah.
Who probably didn't get to make movies and now he's doing the news, which is important. Even more so these days. And it's a solid job.
But so he's left because he got a call to go do something else. And then this happens and Joey is left with seeing this amazing thing. And then we just move on from it.
As we're about to move on from this, it did make me laugh on a rewatch where I know it's coming and there's a nurse. They just keep cutting to this nurse putting down these very methodical, like surgical tools. Yeah,
like the mantles are coming for a checkup. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's almost like, this nurse knew what was about to happen or something. Like, was she a harbinger of the Cenobites? Or, like, they could have gone off the rails with that kind of lore. But I'm just saying, like, the way it was filmed was very intentional. Yeah. As if she knew something crazy was going to happen.
Yeah. And then like it doesn't matter. It's just like, hey, isn't surgery crazy? Look at that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. Not a whole lot you can do after the head blows up. Fantastic opening.
And I do love that 2 and 3 are dedicated to like, we're going to make this a thing of chains blowing someone up in the first 5 minutes of a movie. And I hope that trend continues, but I bet it doesn't.
Do you know if you watched the unrated cut or the rated cut?
I believe I watched the unrated cut.
I did too. I watched that on the Arrow Blu-ray box set. And so you got a few inserts that looked unpolished and all that kind of stuff. Because it's very, very apparent in the unrated cut when they're just using kind of old footage that they found to put back in. So it's easy to know what was excised originally. But in this next sequence where Joey is going to the club, the boiler room, she has a little bit of trouble getting into the club at first. And somebody said, or she's like, what am I, too straight? And I was just like, oh, are they giving a nice little nod to Clive there for like the classic queer horror that he's trying to put into his movies. But no, she gets allowed into the big, very hetero straight looking club. Yeah.
Frankly. So this is the club where it went down, and we're only being able to pick that up from Terry, the woman following the gurney, and it's owned by JP Monroe. This club is insane.
I love a club scene in a horror movie.
It's not the most stylish club you've ever seen.
No.
Like it's not a club you expect fights with Terminators to happen in.
Yeah.
But it's
no tech noirs.
Yeah. But it seems like a reasonable club that she walks in. A Divine Thing by the Soup Dragons is playing, which I've not heard that song in years. He's not in this area. She's looking for him. He's not in this area. I'll just go over to where a metal band is playing. In case you get tired of the Soup Dragons, Cannibal Corpse is taking the stage. Two very similar sounding genres.
Yeah.
But then she talks to a DJ there. He's like, no, he's not here. He's in the restaurant. Oh, the restaurant, which is a fancy, like, violins playing, wine glasses tinkling. What is this club? This is like a mall of clubs.
I would go to a mall of clubs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you get your 80s yuppies in the fancy place. Then you get your like edgy metal club type of thing, which still has a lot of like normie people in there like dancing and stuff. Band on stage is called Armored Saint. Not sure if they went anywhere else, but hey, they were in Hellraiser.
They were in Hellraiser 3. That's more than I can say.
Right. Side note, while we're on the band stuff, there is a wonderful video for Motorhead Hellraiser, because the soundtrack did have a lot of bands on it that are actually pretty decent. Motorhead's Hellraiser kicks off the whole thing. Lemmy plays cards with Pinhead in it in the video.
I think Clive Barker directed that one.
Did. Yeah. And so it's just like, if anybody can like kind of take on Pinhead at a game of cards, it's going to be Lemmy.
It's going to be old Ace of Spades himself.
Does he turn over an Ace of Spades? No, he does not.
Oh,
I'm sure someone suggested that on set and Lemmy like shot him a glare or something.
Yeah.
Look up that video. It's pretty wonderful. Yeah. Armored Saints playing. The unrated cut has various topless dancers running around dancing. It's the place you want to be, the Boiler Room.
And if you're not, there's 8 other places in that club you can go to.
Right. What's your pleasure, sir? Metal bar, yuppie restaurant with violins. We go to a flashback scene of some Nom footage. It's a nightmare of Joey's dad, where Joey's dad's getting left behind. So we're getting into the whole like, they're getting into dream stuff here, which outside of Nightmare on Elm Street, I never liked that much.
It's very confusing because as Joey reveals later, her dad died before she was born. So this is all something she's made up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand like it's this larger sort of abandonment issue kind of thing. Yeah. I wish they kind of tied that in more with her character. It seems a little external.
Director Hillcox is in those flashback scenes. He plays like the pilot or the gunner or something like that. Mm-hmm. Terry calls Joey and agrees to tell her story. Oops, we forgot to talk about Terry. Terry is, I don't know, man. Maybe. Okay, so I was thinking about this a little bit in the terms of I was watching Bram Stoker's Dracula a little bit ago because of the Nosferatu movie. And I was when this couple came on, when I was watching it, or not couple, but you know, our 2 female protagonists, I was just like, oh, we've got like a Winona Ryder and Lucy like kind of pairing. We've got like our a little bit more buttoned up, and then we got our crazy girl who like rocks out and like does her whole thing. So Terry is our Lucy from Bram Stoker's Dracula, you could almost say. You know, she's like the wild one. Yeah, my first thought was the character from Wishmaster 2, the other goth girl. Yes.
Yeah, different. I mean, that was much later, different character. How old do you think Terry is supposed to be in this movie?
I think she's supposed to be about 22.
I don't have like a aha. No, it's just like because they treat her very childishly sometimes, and then other times less so. You know,
maybe I'm a rule follower, so I thought, hey, if she's hanging out in a bar, she's got to be 21, right?
You would think, but then when Terry is like,
look, why don't you go watch some cartoons?
She gets excited about that.
Oh,
when the correct response is, it's called anime.
I'll watch some anime while I read my graphic novel. Thank you very much.
Don't talk down to me about watching Food Wars.
Yeah. Well, and she also, she can't cook. She burns eggs later on and all that kind of stuff. Like the whole like infantile type of character is a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, like you have never been anywhere in your life ever, apparently.
Well, I guess, I mean, that's the point of her just being like subsumed into these other men that she's probably just sort of like jumped here and there and has. I mean, she could probably live on the mean streets better than I could. You know, I need my 2 pillows and
yeah, I'm a dainty special boy. I
am.
can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about her that just doesn't quite click on this for me. And part of it is the performance, I've got to say. But then I also think about how the actors were kind of like were directed, where the director is just like getting bits and pieces that he needs for coverage and not like working on the performance as a whole.
There's some strange moments like when they so she calls up Joey and is like, hey, I need a place to crash. If you let me crash, I'll tell you my story.
Fair enough.
But her whole behavior while she's there is she goes from like, hey, let me put my feet all over your furniture and just hang out to being like totally terrified and awkward about where she is.
Yeah.
But then like that, while that change is happening, the dialogue is very stilted and strange when she's talking about not being able to dream.
I don't dream. Never have. Maybe it'd help if I slept sometime. I'm just kidding.
Who's that a joke for? And it's like, it doesn't read as an awkward, like this character is awkwardly trying to connect with you. It just is just awkward. It's unfortunate. And yeah, the performance isn't great, but I don't think that she had a lot to work with in that regard. I don't know that like how the characters necessarily changed, because this went through a whole bunch of rewrites and Peter Atkins had to fight to keep a lot of the more Clive Barker-y stuff in there. But it's also like, her role in it is very much again, talk about the horniness of this movie is it's a lot more sort of externalized. And like the bit later where she's at home and she's reading the book about the battles and I think she's like, look at the box or something, but it's like she's wearing tiny shorts and carrying a stuffed animal and a lollipop.
And a lollipop.
Yeah. It's a very kind of Lolita look, but it's like, that's not necessarily tied into anything else. It's more just like for you, the viewer. And so it's not like the horniness is coming from the characters. It's more just like salaciousness for you, because you're watching a horror movie. You want to see this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's a bit different before, where it's a dowdy, not dowdy, but it's a middle-aged British woman who's finding her sexual joy. This is just like, nah, we're going to get kinky. We're going to put a hot lady in jean shorts.
Yeah. And the stuffed animal and the lollipop is just a little like, but you know what she does have is a puzzle box.
She does. Because that's where the chains came from. Some guy pried it off of the statue and she kept it.
And it's covered in concrete.
Yeah. It's still got concrete on it, chain shut out of it. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to keep this.
You never know. I mean, don't you keep a puzzle box in your pocket in your like bag when you travel or something like that?
I don't, but I do keep running into situations where I could use one. So
my last 2 were confiscated by TSA when I had to like travel on shoots. Just
you just walking through the security in a Cenobite outfit. What's your pleasure?
Right. Just I asked you to remove all your metal and just like this will take a moment, sir. Yeah. So back at the club after hours, I guess our man JP is just staring at the statue. I believe he's just wearing like, a pair of black boxer briefs, looking all sweaty and cut. Sticks his hand inside and a rat bites him, which genuinely made me laugh. Blood gets splattered all over the statue and it soaks inside. Meanwhile, our 2 women are going to the gallery where the statue was bought. They break into it with Terry's skills, street smarts. They find some paperwork that mentions the Chenard Institute and drawings of the puzzle box from part 2.
Yeah.
So this is our microfiche in the library lore stuff. And it's just like, the records somehow ended up in New York. With this Pillar of Souls, whatever, fine.
And this sort of leads credence to my is just some goofball broke in and sold him the statue. Is that the Pyramid Gallery, which is where he bought this thing, is very crummy.
Because this place is a scam. Half the stuff out there was picked up for pennies. High school art classes, bankruptcy sales,
and closed down lunatic asylums.
Because chances are the Chenard Institute ended in disgrace if they looked into the basement at all. And they just bought the stuff for pennies on the dollar. And there's like, this is important work. So they're just, it's just run by charlatans.
Yeah.
But I like that that's how Chenard's stuff ended up with just some scam people trying to sell it.
After all his intense research. that he put into it.
Yes. Yeah. Which is also very funny that, he was over traveling the world and doing all this research and taking these notes. And this idiot bought a statue like that.
You didn't earn it, man. You know,
it does kind of take the mystery and specialness out of it, where it's just some dope. It's not like everyone else has been looking for it. And they're like, this guy just got it.
JP takes a random woman from the club to his apartment that is also in the club. And they indulge in a little bit of restrained sex with the statue in the background. And Pinhead's watching. Yeah. Indulging in less so voyeurism and more so, I know what's going to happen here in a moment.
It's like, that's what you're into? What a bunch of freaks.
Yeah.
Which, Tony Hickox is big on, because I couldn't tell. It didn't necessarily seem like split diopter, but definitely like someone in the foreground, something else in the background focus kind of thing.
This is the sex scene that I was referring to earlier, though, where the actress... I always hate it when you hear stories about how the director is just like, no, you need to be topless in this scene. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I didn't sign up for that. I did not say that I would do that. And it was one of those situations. And the compromise was that she would take her shirt off and the actor playing JP would just cover her breasts with his hands. So they would not be visible. So it's just like, you'll get fondled instead of seen. But
Patricia Arquette tells a similar story about Lost Highway, where she was like, just put your hands on my boobs. Just do it.
Yep. Just go for it. I am all for the people who are excited to show themselves off in a movie. Do that. I don't like to hear people being cajoled into it.
Yeah. Feels bad.
And such a goofy middle ground that they found.
And it's again like this. If you are 12-year-old me watching this movie, hot dog, this is great. But in terms of like the sex in a Hellraiser movie, this is really tame. And for like this guy to be like, oh, he's the bad boy, he's this Frank Cotton. Yeah, it doesn't really like, there's not the passion isn't there that was there before, or even like implied. Even if it was just from Julia, it was still like there. This was just like, this guy's not an explorer seeking new sensations or in this quest. He's just a jerk that likes getting his rocks off. And that's not necessarily interesting or different from so many other jerks in his position.
Exactly. Yeah. He's such a novice in this. Like, the best you could say is like, he's at the very beginning of his journey into thing, because, you know, they make it a point to start the scene on the restraint around her wrists onto the bedpost. It's just like, okay, you've got like a little fluffy like chain restraint there, and that's kind of it.
That's cute. You get that at Spencer's Gifts.
Right. So yeah, I mean, the best I can think of is just Pinhead sees him as a mark, whereas he might have respected Frank in a weird way.
I think there's a certain amount of like, well, like you said, he could be on the path and everything else. Like, this guy has got whatever to get me what I need to get out of here now that I've been slightly awakened by the blood.
Also, I'm stuck in a post.
Yeah. So whatever.
So I will do whatever I need to do to rock out of this thing.
Not a lot of options. Yeah.
The woman does, after they have sex, she starts wandering around looking at his decorations and such. And the woman loves the painting that JP has up. I did not look this up, but I'm just going to assume that's a Clive Barker painting.
Probably. Yeah. I didn't.
It looks like it. You know. He then wants to kick her out, which is understandably upsetting to her.
But you gave me a rose.
Tomorrow, I'll give one to somebody else. Now get dressed and get out of here.
You shit. Who do you think you are?
I'm JP Monroe, right?
Chains just come out of the statue. It's a great bit though, because it peels her skin off and then sucks her body completely inside the statue. I think some of that, well, I mean, the sucking her body into the statue is the first big kind of like digital effects in this franchise. It's another kind of level of like, oh, we've crossed into the 90s. Now we're doing more digital effects instead of all the practical blood and gore. Still plenty of that in this.
Oh, absolutely.
This is just like, you know, a vulgar display of power of the computer at the time.
Which fits for being a vulgar display of power for Pinhead, which is what he spends most of this movie doing. Starts having a conversation with JP. And I like just the thing where JP like pulls his gun and starts shooting at him. And then Pinhead spits out the bullets.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, like, this is a lot different Pinhead. Like, Pinhead, it, like, knows things about you, can read your mind and, like, knows your past.
Oh, sure.
Whereas before, he was just a guy that showed up when you called the box. He's like, cool, I'm going to torture you now.
Yeah.
You know, but now it is a lot more supernatural.
Yeah, because he calls out, like, that's the gun that you use to kill your parents.
Yeah. So then he strikes a deal with him. He's like, look, you like having sex with people? I like eating them. So why don't we work together? It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work together. And JP's like, sounds good to me, man.
Yeah. I mean, this scene ends basically with a pleasure and pain. You know, like there's sex and there's the blood that awakens or gets Pinhead excited.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Frank and it's like Julia in that he needs blood to fully escape, to fully come into his own.
Flesh, power, and dominion, you know, as he says.
Mm-hmm.
Joey gets a tape delivered to her that has Kirsty on it. Remember Kirsty from the first two films?
Yeah.
We've got our big character from the previous films that up until now we have not seen at all. So she's in some sort of institution, I'm guessing. Where all good final girls go, the institution.
Well, I think this is from the Chenard Institute, because at one point she's talking to Joey is trying to track down a lead, and she's like, "Who do I need to talk to get the Chenard video archives?"
Yes,
which is mostly just tapes of episodes of Videodrome. Like that's mostly what that guy was into,
probably.
And then this, and they ended up shooting this, I think, months before the movie really went into production. They just got
interesting.
Ashley Lawrence in a warehouse somewhere and set up a thing. And it's nice to see her. I kind of wish this had a little bit more to do with Christy, but fine. Like if we can't just stay in the same world forever. But
Look, I've said all this before. I saw it open. I opened it. And I saw what came out. I don't know what else to call them. Demons. Demons live in the box.
Maybe I'm putting too much thought into this, but to me, that's another like example of flattening out the Cenobites, flattening out Pinhead. Yes, Pinhead says demons to some, angels to others. What does that mean? I don't know. You know, like you can debate what that actually means or if it just sounds cool.
Right.
But we talked a lot in the first film and to some degree the second one, like them being more expansive than just demons, especially within the Christian kind of mythology, you know, and this kind of flattens it out to me of her just saying like, yeah, a bunch of demons came out of that box instead of this kind of unknowable travelers of experience.
Right. Well, it's like when we get a little bit further on and Elliot Spencer comes into play and he's like, oh, you can come into this limbo of the dream state between heaven and hell. Whereas before, as we talked about, like, there's no indication that this is actually hell where they're at. Yeah. This is just some other place. You can get into, like, it's not clear if you have to die to get in there. I mean, clearly you don't, because if you just solve the puzzle box, you can wander in, as Christy does in part 2. That it's also leaves this kind of almost, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not nihilistic, but it's like, it's this and that's it. You know what I mean? Like there's this other realm and Pinhead and them are like, yeah, heaven and hell, whatever, man. Right. But it's just, but this other place, there's still like, if you die, you're dead, as Frank says, but here's this other realm where you can get transported to. And whereas when you specifically say heaven and hell, then it's, it takes the mystery out of it. Yeah, exactly. It's like you said, it's a flattening of the whole thing.
Yeah. And like I said, in the second one, like I love me a good Judeo-Christian mythology of like, we got demons fighting angels. And like, that's that feels like a different thing to me than something more expansive like this.
It just doesn't have anything to do with what we know of as hell. I mean, it's called Hellraiser, but you know, it's it's not Pitch with a little pitchfork coming to get you.
Back at Joey's apartment, Terry starts fiddling around with the puzzle box, and now it's gold, proper looking, and not the concrete version from the statue. JP calls Terry at the apartment and tries to get her to come back to his place, but she refuses. And then here's on the answering machine a message left about Joey getting a job in Monterey. And then she gets really upset and leaves a note that just says, "Enjoy your job in Monterey," or something.
Yeah, because she thinks Joey's abandoning her. Joey was like, "You can stay here for as long as you want," but then she feels betrayed by Joey getting this other job offer, which this is the first we've heard of any of it.
We've heard of it too. Terry, we are just as surprised as you are at this. I didn't think this was going to happen.
But the woman that he killed previously, he lured to his apartment he's got a deal with the barkeep, one of the bartenders, played by Peter Atkins. That's the writer Peter Atkins is in a cameo.
Yes.
It's like, hey, give this woman a rose, and that's my in to go talk to her. So this is just a thing he does regularly. So then rather than do that, he's like, you know who I should kill? Terry. I don't like Terry. Yeah. Like, why Terry?
Well, also, it just needs to be blood.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be Terry.
Yeah, but it's specifically, he's a jerk, and he's like, we broke up apparently, and so I don't like you. Yeah. So screw this.
But I'm going to nail you one last time.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm that much of a piece of shit. Yeah, it's less that he's an explorer and more just a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on. If I'm going to kill you, let's have sex one more time. And then we can relax, man.
All I'm saying is both Terry and Pinhead could do better.
We get more flashbacks to Nam and then World War I, where we see Doug Bradley in a trench in uniform. I am usually a big fan of when you get a horror icon having a cameo without their makeup on, because I always think like, oh, they get to not that they're not acting with the makeup, and that's a totally different style.
Right.
But they get to show their face. They get to go back to the theater, and I'm always like weirdly happy for them.
Sure. Yeah. You didn't have to spend 8 hours in a chair this time around. Yeah. It's nice to see him.
Yeah. We're starting to lay the groundwork for Elliot Spencer being stuck in World War I. And there's all kinds of like weird stuff in this movie that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I try to just skate over it, because why is there a television now that has Elliot Spencer's face on it saying, "You have to help me"?
There's a through line of like technological horror in this that, especially with the CDs that we'll get to, and I'm very excited to get to. But that doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't that kind of movie. It's why he's communicating with her over TV static. It's like, she's right, Joey, listen to her. Is odd compared to what we've seen before. Again, moving from something that was very corporeal and fleshy and whatever to just like, I'm in your mind and now I'm on the TV is a little, it's sort of a flattening of it all. But we find out eventually that this is the dream world. And as he says,
a dream of one war is a dream of all wars. Your dreams of finding your father let me find you and bring you to this place, this limbo between heaven and hell.
Sure, why not?
Fine.
But it's also like, he's like, and this is where I am. You seem really just chill for a dude that's just constantly in the trenches of World War I. A thing you go on to say destroyed your entire generation and made you seek out weird stuff. You're just like, hey, I'm with the boys. But I guess if you become Pinhead, none of this stuff means anything anymore. It's like, this is nothing.
That's true. And, if he's been there for an eternity, or since 1924 or whatever. So he's had 70 years to kind of get used to this shit and just kind of like walk around with his hands behind his back and pontificate.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, it may not even be that long. It might just be Inception rules. We're like, I'm in a dream world. Like, I think I've been here for 40,000 years. And it turns out I've just been here since Hellraiser 2.
Yeah. JP and Terry have a standoff on who goes in for a hug. And then he says,
I want to hold you. I want to tell you it's all right. No, baby. It's better that you come to me. It's not fair that I come there. There's one in the bed. Come on over here. Come to daddy.
It's more of this like pale imitation of what came before. Like, the sexual nature of that is so much more threatening in the other movies. Because there is this incestual part to it that's very creepy. Whereas this is just like, you're a weird pervert. And then when the movie also is like, but let's have her walk around carrying a stuffed animal and sucking on a lollipop. I don't feel like that's a thing to like indict the audience where it's like, but see, aren't you part of this too? Because you enjoyed this. Is more just like, no, that shit's hot. I don't. What's the problem?
Right.
It's very strange then to try to tie that and to be like, yeah, but this is a bad guy saying.
Right. So. Yeah. He drags her over to the statue where Pinhead is just starting to go buck wild screaming. And I do like that effect. Mm-hmm. Like if he's being confined to a statue and if he feels like he might get free or he's just frankly getting turned on right now, just edging he's Pinhead. Getting aroused. Yeah. Exactly. Ooh, I just thought of a penis with nails through it just for a second. There. Sorry. Ooh.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Or a hand with...
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Yeah. That's I'm an explorer in that moment.
Pinhead's into sounding. Terrible.
Right. But she ends up like laying him out with a brass knuckle punch. And now it's Terry's turn to be seduced by Pinhead.
Yeah.
Terry feeds JP to the chains, which is kind of cool. And then like I do like watching the statue come alive. Like all the bodies start kind of moving. We get some hell light. Pinhead emerges and he's hatched from the statue.
Yeah, I like all the stop motion stuff on the statue. That's great.
Heck yeah.
I like that. Yeah, his way to get Terry to do it is that he promises her she can dream because as she's told Joey, she is unable to dream.
Oh, right.
Which... that sounds nice. You just get a solid night's sleep. You don't have to, have any nightmares or just annoying stuff. Mm-hmm. That sounds lovely. I don't know what that's like. To me, it sounds very restful.
Yeah, that's what she's going for.
Yeah, she wants dreams. And so he's like, I can give you those. So that element of it, and I know we're that's not coming for like another 5 years or so, but Pinhead has a lot more wish mastery in this one.
I was definitely going to bring that up at some point. There's even a couple of like bad one-liners that feel more out of a Wishmaster movie.
Which you can definitely feel there. Yeah, like that. We're trying to make you into a slasher villain, and that's what slasher villains do now, thanks to Freddy.
Yeah.
So.
Joey wakes up and has visions all over her apartment, including Elliot Spencer, Doug Bradley, again, playing with the puzzle box in the reflection of her window, and she walks through it into his creepy dream room. So I said earlier that I just don't like dream scenarios in horror movies, which is funny because, I love David Lynch. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I get that. But sometimes horror movies just use dreams as an excuse to get weird. And it's just like bad plot device.
It seems like a crutch. We don't know how to get
this. It's such a crutch. And so I try not to be too hard on it. But every time this kind of thing happens, I just sort of roll my eyes a little bit. But then at the same time, like you want to see something like weird and fantastical in a lot of horror movies. So I'm conflicted over this kind of plot device, I guess.
I don't want to get into it too much just yet, but you could make an argument. It's not the way you'd think it'd go about it, but you could make an argument that that's Leviathan trying to lure him back. That it's got the powers to kind of reach out and do that. But they've made at the same time they've made Pinhead so powerful in this one that it there's just supernatural stuff is just happening all over the place. But it is kind of strange that all of a sudden that this element being introduced that now there's this third realm where people are hanging out.
Right. Maybe that's part of it too. It's just like we've already seen like a cool like hell world.
Yeah.
Now there's a dream world that is unconnected.
Which I mean, again, they didn't make it sound like, there's all kinds of worlds out there. It was just like, no, there's the world and then this one. That's it. Now it's something else.
This isn't Planescape. That's for like no persons. Okay.
It shouldn't be, but at least one person got it and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah. Right. So we get a little backstory going here of Elliot Spencer. He served during World War I. He's running around India. This is kind of like some of the ideas that were cut out of part 2 for budgetary reasons. He does have not fun, but a nice soliloquy about
the war destroyed my generation. Those that didn't die drank themselves to death. I went further. I was an explorer of forbidden pleasures.
Finding the puzzle box, wanting to find something new. That's how he, I guess, gets away from the horrors of World War I.
Yeah, by just sort of falling headlong into new experiences and sensations and whatever.
It was kind of curious because they didn't even show him like, kind of like Frank, now that I'm thinking about it, like it didn't show him like having a ton of sex and
just
that
the pursuit of it. Yeah. It was just sort of, the drill.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if, just for the sake of argument, was he looking for something that wasn't sex? Like,
right.
Like pleasure and pain beyond that. Because that's what we know with Frank.
Yeah. He's like, I just like puzzles.
Yeah. He's just sort of into that.
They didn't invent Sudoku yet. And so I was seeking this box.
Kirsty wants to set him free, but the evil in his soul is too strong and he hid in the pillar. So this starts to get real murky. So now there's Pinhead and there's Elliot Spencer. Two completely separate entities. Beyond that, I don't know.
But that somehow when Christie zapped him with the box in 2, it freed him. So it like created this split, I guess, because Pinhead is still exists, that evil hid. Which really what I think is going on here is that this is a movie about Pinhead trying to freelance. He's like, look, I got fired from my old job.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm going to make my own. This is going to be great. And this part of him is his conscience, not in that like, hey, killing is wrong, whatever. It's more just like, we need to get our old job back.
Mm-hmm.
This shit's hard. And this sucks. And that's why he wants to send him back to hell.
I don't have health insurance.
Yeah, he's like, we need to get our old job back. You're not good at this stuff.
Yeah.
As we learned, like Pinhead will show us time and time again that he's not good at this stuff, but he's convinced. He's like, no, I just got to do this.
Yeah.
So I think Elliot operates as a conscience in that way, as just a like, but we got to get back.
So there is the whole like Pinhead wants to destroy the box because that's his gateway back to hell. He can't, so now he's on Earth. He just wants to shut the door to hell. Because
that lets Leviathan still have some kind of control over him, where he's like, no, if I stop you being able to access this plane, then I can rule this plane.
Yeah.
And then I can do things the way I want to, or become my own Leviathan, because he starts, as we'll find out later, starts making his own Cenobites, which are just religious acolytes. So he's like, well, I'm going to make my own that do that.
Yep.
How hard could it be? I've seen you do it. He was tired of his job. He was bored of his job. So he's like, I could do a better job. And now he's in a position where he has to do that. And it's not going well. It's not going to go well. But if he's like, but if I can shut that guy out of this is my market. I'm building a brand and it's going to be on planet Earth.
You're convincing me of this because they don't mention Leviathan once in this movie, right?
No.
But I can see where you're going with that. But also, the whole time I was watching this, I was just like, so it's called Hell on Earth. And I was just like, is this just a generic Pinhead wants to take over the world type of crap? Because that's so boring. Mm-hmm. But if you tie it to, I want to make my own Cenobites, I want to do things my own way, I can kind of see that. But like, without some sort of like, I don't know why I went to like world conquest necessarily beyond the title.
Yeah, it's Hell on Earth.
But like,
what else are you going to do with it?
Right. But yeah, but if he wants to close off Leviathan and just stay on Earth and then just kind of do things his own way.
Right. Or make it, or become his own Leviathan, whether that, that involves staying on Earth. Cause he's, as Elliot says, like, there are rules. I had to follow rules. He doesn't now.
Yeah.
He can do his own thing. And so he was like, look, those suck. That's part of why I was so bored. Now I can just explode people and do whatever. Well, I'll save it for when we start talking about the other Cenobites, but yeah, he's looking out for Pinhead. He's trying to make his way in the world.
And boy, does he, because back at the boiler room, all the sculptures are starting to come to life. Then Pinhead himself fully reveals himself to an entire club, which I think is just a bit weird.
Well, that's a bit much. I forgot because we didn't talk about this. When we were describing the club's just got like stupid art hanging around, like, oh, here's a weird baby.
Oh, yes.
And at one point, there's just a dude on the wall, like dressed in black, and it seems to have barbed wire on him. But I also like that it's just the idea that perhaps it's just some guy trying to escape his tab. Dave, get down. We know it's you. You've tried this shit before. Like, no, I'm artwork. This is a performance piece. It's $3.50 for a Miller High Life, Dave. Come down.
Yeah, and you had two. Like, it's fine.
But but it is weird. Like, this Pinhead revealing himself to people, that he's like, check it out. It's me, Pinhead. And this becomes very, I don't want to make the comparison this way because that other one came out so much later, but my first thought was Wishmaster.
Yeah.
This is a very Wishmastery scene of just all these effects happening to people. this was a big CG effect where water comes out of this woman's glass and it becomes his
so
face
corny,
and then becomes like a shard of glass of ice that jams into her head. It's extremely corny, but I got a big kick out of it. But yeah, sure. It's a little corny, and like just all these people are dying. Chains are coming out of her. I love the dude that catches one, like it's headed for his girlfriend. He's like, "Hey, buddy," it catches one, and then it rips off his fingers. Bartender gets barbed wire wrapped around his head, and then the most beautiful kill. The DJ, he's just like watching people die, and he just has this look of like, all right, okay, so this is the thing that's going on. And then all these CDs start floating around his head. He's like, what the fuck? And then they fly into his skull. Yeah. Again, this like weird, like beware of technology, which I wonder if it came out the same year, but a better example of that is the sci-fi. No, it's 1990 Dark Angel, aka I Come in Peace. With Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, with the guns that go from 1 to 5.
And the guy that shoots, he throws CDs at people and they cut off their heads. Like that. Wonderful sci-fi horror crime movie. Love that thing.
Yes.
But I think that Pinhead was like, those things have rainbows on them. That's kind of cool. What if I did something with that? He's just trying stuff out. He's like, I got this whole crowd of he's not interested.
Playing jazz.
Yeah. He's not interested in like exploring kind of, he's like, I've done all that. What I need right now is numbers. So I'm just going to kill all these people.
Yep.
And he does. And actually, my favorite part of this, I joke about the CD, but I really like at the end, the whole scene ends with a shot of the doors closed to the club. Yeah. And there's blood coming from underneath, and you just hear these chain noises and them hitting something. And that's it. There's no longer screams. It's just the chains. And there's so much blood, and it goes on for a really long time. And it just kind of makes you sit in it. And I thought that was very effective.
For sure. How are we going to do the in memoriam?
That is your problem. But I would like to reflect that all those people died because I need those numbers for my own, for my picks of, for my death estimations.
Yeah. I mean, this is the centerpiece of the movie. And I always think, I mean, not when I was younger and watching The Exorcist, but now that I'm older, and whenever I rewatch that movie, I love so much when Reagan, with the demon inside of her, says, "Oh, that's too much vulgar display of power." Yeah. And I think about that a lot when, I mean, look, I don't give a shit when Michael Myers like slashes a bunch of people, but like if we're talking about like a mystical, like supernatural being that has been relatively contained in the past couple of movies, just Pinhead walking down the stairs and then just slaughtering everybody seems like a vulgar display of power to me, but we're in a different type of movie now. So I need to tamp that down and moving forward. So
get ready to do a lot of tamping. This may tamp a bit.
Tamp. Yeah. This is, we are turning a corner here. So wonderful scene.
Yeah.
Though. Like even the goofier stuff.
Yeah. Just it's something that I do think that Wishmaster, because obviously, like you can go back to Carrie being a thing, trapping people and then killing them all in different ways. But like Wishmaster is so much more like, let's try out this effect. Let's try out this effect. Let's do this, where this is a lot more just like, and chains and chains and chains. It's fine. Like, it's still a fun scene.
Joey sees the report on the news of the Boiler Room massacre. Doc, the camera guy, is flipping through channels, and he does pass a shot of the director of Hellraiser 3 himself, Anthony Hickox, on the tube. So they all convene at the Boiler Room, and Joey walks in, and there are bodies just absolutely everywhere. Candles, bodies. She finds Doc decapitated, just holding his own head on his lap,
and the camera replacing his head. I thought that was really cool because it like you hear it like pan up and look at her, and that's very creepy. Elliot has tasked her with going and getting Pinhead instead of the plot being her being respected and getting the good story. It's now just her proving value to somebody else, I guess. And because Elliot's like, you're brave and you can do this, because she's got to trap Pinhead with a box. She can't take it from her. She has to give it. But she still has to show it. She wants to be closer with the box so she can open it and trap him inside, taking him to Elliot's realm, which doesn't make any sense unless you want to argue that the projection of Elliot is actually Leviathan, right? Or that I guess the boxes are just keys to whatever world you feel like.
Well, no, okay. So the whole he can't take it she has to give it to him.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that's just kind of like vampire logic. Like you have to invite them in, or even like, I don't know, like, isn't that the whole thing with the ruby slippers? Like the Wicked Witch can't take the ruby slippers and, you know.
Yeah, it's a way to make it seem deeper than it really is. You know,
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, well, I had this complication that seems mysterious, and it's not. It's just
for sure
a way to explain that. Why doesn't he just get it? Well, he can't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, he can't just, right. Yeah. Pinhead gives a speech for a while, not to downplay his speeches, because I always like a good Pinhead speech. But, you know, Doug Bradley just chews the scenery as he needs to do. Looking great.
The only reason his dad, Anthony Hawke's dad, directed Theater of Blood was because his son, Anthony, really wanted him to. Because he loved Hammer horror films. And stuff has been made. Yeah, I think that's great. And stuff has been made about Pinhead in this one seeming more like the Christopher Lee Dracula. Hammer Dracula, about just this big, like he's all just presence, and he doesn't do a lot of the violence himself,
right?
You know, whatever. But then when he does, it's kind of silly. But yeah, but so it's a lot more like I love listening to Pinhead just opine on stuff, and like they kind of flatten him out a little bit. Where, you know, at one point he's trying to get the box, and she fights back. And he's like, just show up and die before you don't have a choice to die. It's just like, that was a little flat, but you know,
sure.
Again, Pinhead, he's on his own. He's trying to do stuff and going to see what works and what doesn't.
Totally. Joey escapes, but she's chased by water with some blue electricity in it, which, you know, I guess is scary if it's happening to you. But after you've seen like a club full of dismembered corpses with barbed wire wrapped around them, like, the electricity isn't as
just get on the sidewalk. And she does eventually, but it's like, this is an easily escapable. Like, I've seen a Final Destination movie. I understand that you haven't, but
right. Lots of sewer explosions start going off as she runs down the street, and then hell yeah, Doc comes back. Your man Doc.
Yep.
We start getting introduced into our new Cenobites.
Mm-hmm.
Doc Cenobite walks towards her, and so he uses his eye lens. He's got a camera lens now melded to his face to punch a hole into an innocent bystander's like face, which is pretty fantastic.
Ready for your close-up, Joey?
So we got one-liners going here now. Then there's a bartender Cenobite. His name is Barbie.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if you know that.
Because he's a bartender and he's covered in barbed wire.
True.
And then later when he spits out fire, it's like a barbecue.
Oh, I didn't put that part together. Yeah. And like any good action figure, he comes with his own prop. He's got a cocktail shaker.
Full of gas.
Full of gas. Yeah. Oh boy.
And then
all right. Yeah.
The best one.
CD.
The CD guy.
Yeah.
Who's a robot also?
He just sounds like the Borg.
Yeah. He's just
like especially Doc looks like a Borg.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys are a far cry from Butterball.
Yes. And I mean, Pinhead himself admits as much later.
He does later on.
They're handmade, Joey. A shadow of my former troops, over eager.
Well, he's like, look, how hard is it to make these guys? You know, we see in the last one, we see like, it does this whole rigmarole to get Chenard, puts him in this box, takes him off screen to do a bunch of stuff to him.
In like a chamber.
Yeah. Man's like, whatever. I know how to do this. I'll just make these guys Cenobite. And so they have none of the, like, all the other Cenobites seem like this exploration of flesh and this other stuff. Granted, Chenard's like flesh worms or a little bit, are a bridge between these two types of Cenobites. But like, it just seems like he's making them to terrorize her, or he's just like, I don't know. These things are kind of weird. He's a CD guy. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
Again, just trying to get numbers. He's putting no thought into how these things are done. They're bad Cenobites made by a bad Cenobite maker.
Yeah.
And so I don't fault the movie for those things being shitty. It's Pinhead's fault. Pinhead doesn't know what he's doing.
He's just not there yet.
He's not there. He's full of bread. He just hates his old boss so much. He's convinced he can do a better job, and he cannot.
Does not have Leviathan powers.
No, I mean, he doesn't have the panache. He can make them. They're just not that great. And yeah, the idea that they exist as like everyone has their power, where, like you said, it feels like an action figure thing. Like this is, we can market this later versus like, I mean, none of the other Cenobites had powers. I mean, Butterball had the power to win my heart. Yes. And I miss him so much. I do. I was thinking about I don't have the artistic skill to do this. So if anyone out there does, this would be great. You know, remember those old like Big Dog shirts from like 2000?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's that, but it's Butterball. And he's like lowering his sunglasses. You can see his ears are sewed up and his eyes are sewed up. And he's like, not hearing any of your bullshit because I've seen enough. Yeah. It's like a shirt you would get at like a tourist stand in Puerto Vallarta or something like that. Yeah. Just the dumb shit. Make a whole line of Butterball stuff. He should be the voice of a generation.
Yeah.
Not these
not
guys.
CD with the grinning weird mouth and just.
I think I'm more irritated that he sounds like a robot. Because it's like the whole moving from the whole like the explorations of the flesh and this permeating of what it means to be a human to just be like it takes away some of that fear of that, and it's just like he's a robot now.
And it's just weird seeing him walk down a street, you know, like instead of hanging out in a weird attic.
Yeah, they put Pinhead in a lot of places where he doesn't belong in this movie.
Yes,
not the worst offender hasn't happened yet, but we'll get there.
Cops show up and tell the Cenobites to freeze, which is just a weird sentence to say.
Yeah, knock it off. Knock off all that Cenobiting.
Stop that Cenobiting, please. It's just weird to see cops facing down with Cenobites. Barbie throws some gasoline on some cops and burns them all down.
That's a wrap.
Joey seeks refuge in a church, which is, you know, I guess that's smart. You know, you're getting chased by demons. Go to the church.
Why did I need to see the entire walk up of that priest? Because the priest is at the other end, like at his altar, and then it's just Karen sits there. Well, he's like, just a second, I'll be right there. And just clump, 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 clump. All right, ready to deliver my lines.
It's like the old man in the bank vault in Twin Peaks. Yeah.
Spare me nothing, Hickox, Anthony Hickox. Let me see this entire walk.
Pinhead is hot on her trail. You know, she gets a good memorable line of,
But they just keep coming. They just keep coming.
Who keeps coming?
The demons. The demons.
Demons? Demons aren't real. They're parables, metaphors.
Then what the fuck is that?
Pinhead melts a cross in his hand. Now, I'm a sucker for really cheeseball sacrilegious stuff. I think it's funny. Great. So if you got like a cross melting, that's funny to me. This whole scene is designed to basically like be blasphemous. And evidently, like some of the crew didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're in North Carolina. It's the 90s. Yeah.
Not gonna fly so well. Pinhead does do a lot of weird shit in this where he's like pulling pins out of his hands for no reason. I do kind of like the little worms that are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they're there, but I like
the fact that there were two was like, if it was just one and then the other thing like pulled out something else, I don't know, like,
sure.
You know, a hairball or something. I don't know. But just like, it's like, what is in your head, Pinhead? Just a bunch of worms.
You know, then he stabs the pins into his hands like the stigmata of Christ. And then he does, you know, probably the most famous shot in the movie, which is like he mirrors Christ hanging on the cross. And that shot's fantastic. You know, like, again, I wouldn't like that in the first Hellraiser, but I like it in Hellraiser 3.
Well, and this one, I mean, particularly you have, like I said, Pinhead's feeling himself, feeling super powerful, flexing all the stuff, but it's also like, it's not sacrilegious in the way that it's like the devil rules. Woo! It's more just like this is dumb. This is what. Look at me. This is you.
Totally.
I'm a dead guy. It's just mocking. It's not necessarily like it to give Satan power. It's just like, you guys believe such nonsense. When
Leviathan drives like this, but Jesus drives like this. You know?
Yeah, Jesus ever shoot black light out of his face? Yeah, I don't want to hear about it. Then shut up.
Right. And then they have like a little bit, like he does like a full like communion with the priest, which is pretty great because he just like makes him eat literally like a chunk out of his own flesh.
That is the most Clive Barker moment in this entire thing. Like if you look at like the weirdo priest and like the kind of the fake or the twisted baptism in Nightbreed, in Rawhead Rex, there's some weird stuff with priests in that, like that kind of subverting of these Catholic rituals and making them into something much more evil is huge Clive Barker thing. So that was a very welcome moment.
Right. And I don't know. I love that kind of stuff because I also think it's just kind of goofy and funny.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I'll take it.
But it's also like that. I like that Pinhead was like, look, there's a lot of plate spinning right now. I have killed a lot of people. I am trying to get this person. I have made a whole bunch of terrible Cenobites I got to deal with, but I'm going to mess with this guy for a little bit. I'm going to take 5 minutes.
I'm going to spend a long time in
This
here.
is for me.
Yeah.
This is for, I mean, this is all for me, but really, this one's for me.
But again, not to harp on this even more, but now that we've got an entire scene of a church desecration, it does again put this more in the pocket of heaven and hell.
It's like the other ones like barely had any reference to it, whereas this one specifically, I mean, Jesus wept, but that was, that's Frank being Frank.
And that was an improv line.
This one has, and it's still in the statue, and when he first subsumes that woman.
Jesus Christ.
Not quite.
Maybe that was the Wishmaster bit, because I think Wishmaster even says something like that.
My God.
Not yet human.
Man, make Andrew Divoff a Cenobite. That's all I'm saying. He'd make a good Cenobite.
There we go. God. Yeah, Joey runs around a bunch again. Terry is now a Cenobite, and so is JP. So the main question I've been wanting to ask you, John, what's the deal with JP's Cenobite powers?
What's the deal with either of theirs? Yeah, it's bad.
The smoking, they make reference to a couple times, like she wants a cigarette. Big deal. She's got a cigarette in her
throat. She's basically the female Cenobite, but they put a cigarette in there.
Yeah.
And like, whoa, I can dream now. What does that have to do with anything with how you look like?
Right. But also, like, what's with the pistons in JP's head?
Yeah, that seems weird. Like that's, it's not like that they were big on necessarily like irony with how they would, kill people or is the Cenobites. We don't know too much about them, but the pistons seem very strange for being there. And just, I think Pinhead panicked and just went, I don't know, this.
This is due in 2 hours. I've just got to come up with something.
Like there's several things that happen. Well, with that, and then later when Joey is being attacked, there's a very mechanical kind of thing, and that seems a lot different than what we've seen before in terms of.
Sure,
it seems less biological and fleshy and more cold and sterile. And yeah, the pistons in the head is just because I mean JP's a pretty lackluster character in general, so there's not a whole lot you can do with him, but still the pistons constantly going in his mind or like through his brain. He's got Phineas Gage powers, I guess. I don't know.
She opens up the box and calls him Pinhead. Yes. I think for the first time in the movies.
Play with this Pinhead.
This is the first time, like as an insult, calls him Pinhead.
Yeah, all the pseudo-Cenobites are like converging on her in some sort of like construction area. Kind of like the end of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. But all she has to do is open the puzzle box, which, again, is too easy to do. And she can just open it and it sucks all the Cenobites inside. So,
well, this one, they throw a new thing in there where the puzzle box wants you to open it. It helps you open it, which I think is kind of a cop-out.
Right.
Because it's less about...
You need to want it.
Yeah, exactly. It's less about that destructive desire, which is what the whole first one, I mean, the core of the story is about, both just in the nature of the box and then in Julia's pursuit of pleasure, Frank's pursuit of pleasure, that these violent delights have violent ends, to quote a terrible show. That's just like, no, the box wants you to open it. And there's some logic to that, but it's still just, it makes it all too easy and takes so much of the impetus for the main themes that what's been underpinning this whole series up to this point and just kind of tosses it out the window.
Sure.
It's like, no. It's more, you're being acted upon rather than being the architect of your own demise.
Sure. Yeah. So she opens up the box and just sucks your beloved CD head into the box, and he's gone and never to be seen.
But again, I like the idea of those Cenobites like going to hell, like going to the Leviathan wells. Leviathan's like, okay, what are we doing here? What is this?
Yeah. What do I have to fix?
What is happening here? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Into the chamber with ye.
Yeah.
Now I want to see their revitalized self.
Yes. What would Leviathan do to fix it? Leviathan is like the Tim Gunn to whatever Pinhead is doing.
Bar rescue.
Yeah. Cenobite rescue.
So from here on out, it gets real jumpy around. There should be one or two endings here, and I don't want to hear any crap about Return of the King having too many endings after you see Hellraiser 3, because I think there are way too many endings in this movie. She ends up going to Elliot's world, and this is where she gets wrapped up in bondage gear. Then Pinhead appears, and they just insist on filming him in a wide-angle lens in the close-up, giving it that weird fisheye thing.
Yeah.
I know they thought it was cool. I think it erases all the menace.
Well, yeah, like there's a shot of him in the club when his mouth is open and he's loud, like he's like ha ha ha. It works, but it's this close-up, and it's like at like one of the worst angles you can film somebody.
Yeah.
Where it's just like you see like the other chins. It's just, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, don't do that, guys. Some little creature comes up out of the ground, and you know me, John, like anytime like a weird creature shows up, I'm usually pretty happy with it. I don't know what this little guy was doing. He gets a little mechanized and stuff like that, but
yeah, it's very threatening too, because it's like this weird, almost like lotus flowery looking thing with some very phallic thing in the middle that seems to be like it's almost going to terrorize Joey's crotch, but it's like no, we're not done yet. Here's some metal stuff that's going to slash up her face.
Elliot and Pinhead struggle somehow over something, and then their foreheads kind of meld together, and it looks like Pinhead absorbs him. So now we've got even more of that like early 90s CG, like out of the practical into the digital.
It looks like they're just thinking at each other really hard.
Yeah.
Which is something else that there's a power Doc has, where he just looks at something so hard it blows up. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but it has to be TVs.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Related.
Yeah, it's not just anything.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just thought of him staring at a microwave with a burrito inside. like, come on, cook faster. Boom.
This keeps happening. And he just has like a pile of microwaves and he just gets a new one.
Gets a new one, puts it there. She tries to open the box because that's always what you do.
Gotta do that.
It worked last time.
Yeah.
But she accidentally makes it a knife and instead stabs Pinhead. I guess this is fine, like using the weapon, using the box, turning it into a weapon.
It's the same. It's kind of the same thing as in part 2. It turns it into the more sort of Leviathan shaped dealy. And yeah, but it is sort of a little anticlimactic in that, where it's just stab.
I mean, that's just the problem with Pinhead and the Cenobites. Again, I don't need like a power set like listed out, but sometimes they're just so powerful, but then they get so easily defeated if you just do the right one little thing.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like the only time they were defeated before, I mean, like they were bamboozled by Christie in part 1, although not really. I mean, she held up her end of the bargain. But in part 2, it was Chenard that killed them. So Cenobite on Cenobite violence. But this is, when you just reduce it to just it's a little bit less exciting. Because it was also like not so much, even like Jace or whatever, there's usually like a struggle or something like that. This seemed less so.
Mm-hmm. Then she buries the puzzle box in some wet concrete after she gets to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And in the near future, I guess the building that is being built there, she doesn't walk in, but we just walk in as the audience, and we see an entire puzzle box motif in the lobby of this corporate building, which I don't know if that fits with the rest of the movie or not, but it looks damn cool.
I always thought that was great. You turn the lament configuration into the cement configuration.
Whoa!
And I just like the idea that like this very cursed thing. And the original ending was going to be that like was like a powerful news person now. Or that basically like a lot of other things changed, but that basically it's like that she kind of sold her soul to get what she wanted.
She got Wishmaster.
Basically, yeah. But I do like the idea that there's that it's not necessarily that personal, because this movie is really destroyed that aspect of it of being a more sort of personal thing, but just that you are working and amongst evil all the time and you don't necessarily know what's going on. You're just like, I'm the janitor here. I don't know, but this is, I'm an evil co.
The production designer did a fantastic job. Like it looks cool. Like it looks like disturbing. Like I think that's a wonderful last shot for as many problems as I have with this movie.
And I'm so excited to spend the next movie in this building. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Without a doubt, that's where we're going to be.
We're going to be like Hellraiser goes corporate, Pinhead, all of your downsizing theories and like
all the business stuff
machinations. Gonna definitely happen.
The Pinhead of Wall Street.
All right, let's honor our dead. Teenage Clover, electrocuted, torn apart by chains, head exploded. Sandy, played by Amy Lee, flayed alive, sucked into Pillar of Souls. J.P. Monroe, played by Kevin Bernhardt, hooks through flesh, pistons through head, blood drained. Terry, played by Paula Marshall, killed off screen. Male partier, played by Zach Galligan, impaled by pool stick. Female partier, played by Rosemary Gore, impaled by Pinhead icicle. Rick Bloodstone, played by Peter Atkins, strangled by barbed wire face wrap. Female partier 2, face skin flayed. C.D. Hammerstein, played by Brent Bolthouse, slashed and stabbed by multiple compact discs to the face. Male partier, hooked in face, dragged to ceiling. Male partier 2, hooked in face. Male partier 3, 2 hooks in face out of the pool table. Party man, hook through jaw. Party woman, throat torn open with hook. Party couple, impaled through chest and face with hook chain. Doc Fisher, played by Ken Carpenter, decapitated. Man, impaled through forehead with camera lens. Cab driver, played by Dave Keene, CD launched into face. Cop, CD launched into face. Male cop, played by Bobby Bragg, killed in car explosion. Female cop, played by Shauna Jacobs, killed in car explosion. All right, so I'm just going to say that without every single mutilated body, we're sitting on 22.
Okay.
You know, I for this one, I counted the times where you see something interact with a person, not just like bodies laying down.
If day-to-day life wasn't a nonstop stream of horrors, I would sit down and pause and frame by frame and count everybody. But I don't need that additional pain in my life, so I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, this is what the station in Jason.
Oh, Solaris, yeah,
Solaris Station.
Well, I mean that was tens of thousands of people.
Okay, yeah,
but still,
just one explosion.
But point taken that it was that this is a carnage that we don't get the full picture of.
Exactly. I'm trying to well, no, that doesn't work because I'm skating over dead bodies completely. I was gonna say I wanted to personalize all this, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I don't. Screw those people.
Yeah. Again, this bit was a great idea early on. Not now. Yeah. But no, I mean, for the complaining, this is still a fun movie to me. I really think so.
It is, and honestly, like watching it from the standpoint of Pinhead tries to go on his own and fails. It's fun. It's real because like so many of the shortcomings of this movie can be explained away by Pinhead sucking it, trying to be Leviathan. It's just like he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's like, it's this thing where he's having so much fun being a bad guy and having all these powers. He's not interested in the suffering. He's just killing people. And then like his Cenobites, whatever. He's just really concerned about getting that box. So he's got a long way to go, but I don't fault him for trying.
Good thing we have 8 more.
Yeah.
See if we can get there.
Yeah, those other Cenobites suck so bad. But I do like when I watched them when I was 12, I was like, these things rule. That guy's got CDs in his head. He's great.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you think about it at all, it's not good. But if you don't, it's fantastic.
But yeah. I mean, what do they say? Check your brain at the door. Hellraiser. This is not the Clive Barker themes and all that kind of stuff. This is like a fun romp.
Yeah, but it's also like, I think at that point I was not introduced to the majesty of Butterball. So
fair enough.
Little did I know. I didn't know what was good for the kind of, if you're going to go this like Pinhead goes America, Pinhead becomes this more Hollywood thing. I don't think that Anthony Hitchcock necessarily did a bad job, because it's very much what that's supposed to be. Like, very theatrical, very big and whatever. I think it lacks polish in certain places that could have helped it a lot, but it's fun. And I mean, I think I'm being a little, I'm prevaricating a little bit on this just because I don't know, but I have an idea of how bad these things get. So I'm trying to like, yeah, it's still good. It's still good. Yes. But I did have a fun enough time with this movie. It's a significant step down from the last two. I still had fun with it though.
Right. If you're going to get into slasher villain era, body count era, it's perfectly fine. But, and it does retain some of it's a little surface level.
Yeah.
But it still retains a little bit of the subversion in the church scene. Like the blasphemy is still fun.
Yeah, some of that same stuff,
like that kind of stuff.
You kind of get when you read or hear about some of the behind the scenes stuff, you get a sense of like what Peter Atkins was able to fight and keep versus what they just wanted from him. So I think it still has some of that same Hellraiser spirit in there. Although as diluted as it might be, it's still there.
Well, hold on to that because it just keeps slipping and slipping and slipping. So,
oh boy,
we are at part 3 of 11, folks.
Oh my gosh.
So, like I've said, this is a test for the true listeners. Who's going to like hold on,
tough it out?
You know, who's going to tough it out with all of us?
So is this the longest one that we will have done up to this point?
Well, I think Jason was 11.
Jason was 11
as well.
Oh yeah, no, Jason was 11. Yeah,
X, and then the remake. Because I always remember, like, if you count Freddy versus Jason, that means there's 12 Jasons, which means they're sitting on gold to make Friday the 13th part 13. You know, whenever the legal rights get up. Anyway, this is tied for the longest.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. Stick around with us. It's only going to get worse from here, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited now because I feel like this is a good way to cast off the shackles of like,
oh yeah,
okay, we're done trying to pretend to be smart or good about any of this. Now it's just schlock time.
Part 4, Bloodlines, which we'll be getting to in 2 weeks, is an Alan Smithy film.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh,
just start there, everyone.
We didn't talk about this, but there's a line of dialogue where Pinhead tells Joey there's a song at the center of the world, a secret song that plays at the center of the world, and it sounds like Razors and Flesh. No, it doesn't. It sounds like the phrase. The fourth one was directed by Alan Smithy.
Yes,
that is a combination of beauty and pain. I love it.
You got so excited to open that box.
For those of you that don't know, a film being made by Alan Smithy means that the director took his name off of the movie. Oh, that's going to be good.
So upset with how things get cut, you know. So
yeah.
Also, it's in space.
It's in space.
Just come on, guys.
Yeah. They just went to space.
If any of you are going to drop out, just get to the fourth.
Get to the fourth one.
You know. I still won't respect you as much.
Sure, yeah. You're dead to me.
You know, if you're still going to drop out. I mean,
but
yeah.
No. Well, the thing is they might be dead to you, but they could always get deader.
Oh, sweet deader.
Oh.
I can't wait to be disappointed all over again.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for listening to this one. Thanks so much for everyone who's chatting us up on the Patreon and listening to our nonsense over there. I think we mentioned last time we were doing some more Clive Barker movies over there. And we're going to do another one in, I don't know, a week or so. Mm-hmm. And then also, it always seems so tangential to throw out the other level of Patreon that we're doing to a degree. But if you listen to the show enough, you know that we're giant Twin Peaks fans. So we're also doing Twin Peaks episodes over there. So, man, I'm not using David Lynch's tragic passing as a way for you to sign up for Patreon because that feels real gross. But if you've ever thought about watching Twin Peaks, now's the time to do it. You don't have to sign up for the Patreon. Just watch it on your own. Yeah. Just watch it on your own. When you hear that music play, you'll be okay. Yeah. You know, you really will.
Oh, Angelo.
And then maybe later on you can like check
if you're interested in what we have to say about it, that's good too. But that is great. Just watch it. Just sit down and watch it.
It's wonderful. All right, everyone. So get your favorite Alan Smithy movie queued up, and that is Hellraiser.
Yeah, obviously. That's going to be everyone's favorite.
That one will be, don't do the wrong homework, everyone. So, also look up that Motorhead video.
Oh, yeah.
It rules. Yeah. Hellraiser by Motorhead. But until then, you can find us on This May Hurt a Bit Pod on Instagram, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So until Bloodlines, good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.